right, perfect. We are on.
Right on.
Amazing. Mark, normally I start with who you are and what you do.
Oh, my name is Mark McAfee, and I'm the founder and CEO of Raw Farm. Used to be called Organic Pastures Dairy, which is the largest raw milk operation using human consumption raw milk production practices. I started in 1998, and that's in Fresno, California. But here we're in LA with you. And so I'm the CEO and founder. My son runs all the operations now, and I spend most of my time educating. We have a saying, you don't sell raw milk, you teach it.
And why is it so controversial these days? Sounds like just a family business, but there's much more going on here.
There is. There's a lot of moving parts, and we'll get into it. But
this episode is brought to you by Alive Water. Let's be honest, most of you are obsessing over supplements, but you're still drinking dead, over-processed tap water out of plastic. That makes no sense. Alive Water is real spring water, mineral-rich, untouched, sourced straight from nature and delivered right to your door in reusable glass. Nothing stripped, nothing added, no plastic toxins. This is hydration the way your body actually recognizes. We switched, and you can literally taste the difference. More minerals, cleaner, sharper. If you care about performance, recovery, hormones, energy, start with the thing that you consume the most. Go to alivewaters.com and use code CANDY for 33% off. That's 33% off with code CANDY. Stop drinking dead water. This episode is brought to you by Crowd Health. Let's talk about the biggest scam in America, health insurance. You pay insane monthly premiums just to beg for permission when you actually need care. It's backwards. Crowd Health flips the entire system. No networks, no middlemen, no corporate nonsense. It's peer-to-peer healthcare platform that helps you find great doctors, negotiate your bills, and fund those bills through a community for way less than traditional insurance. More freedom, more transparency, more controlled. If you're self-employed, building a business, or just tired of the system owning your health, this is your exit. Go to joincrowdhealth.com and use code CANDY for a 3-month discount. That is joincrowdhealth.com, code CANDY. Stop funding the machine, start owning your healthcare.
Raw milk is extremely disruptive to the dairy market. And dairy markets have been around for a long time. Back in the 1700s, we had a cow every other house in America, every other place had a cow. And it was the foundations of Wall Street, and the stock market was livestock, cows and beef, right? So it's fundamental to America and most of the rest of the world that dairy was part of wealth for a long time. Prior to 100 years ago, it was all raw milk. And raw milk has a spotty history where if you took your cow from the countryside into the city, it didn't have clean water and grass and sunshine and good feed, and you're feeding that cow brewers' distillers' grains in filthy conditions, that milk was completely different than the milk out in the countryside. And so that's where pasteurization really got its hold. Industrial systems got this hold on milk was in the late 1800s. Because people get sick and die from that filthy milk in downtown Boston, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and even Moscow in England had problems. So clean conditions, sunshine, water, grass, those are the kind of conditions where you had good raw milk that people consumed in the local communities, no problem. And it was even going to the Mayo Clinic to heal people. But if you took that cow out of that environment and you put the cow into a really filthy environment with no clean water, no grass, no sunshine, and the people themselves were sick, they had tuberculosis, and the milk was going into dirty buckets, then you started seeing deaths from that milk. And that's where pasteurization really got its hold, where you could excuse filthy milk. And today, the standards are that you can bring in whatever milk you got on your dairy, and it's acceptable because you're going to cook it, you're going to pasteurize it, you're going to homogenize it, you're going to standardize it, you're going to put it through a bacterifugation machine, which takes out all the bacteria and cleans it all up as best as can. It doesn't take it out, but it takes a lot of it out. So pasteurization is literally an 18th century solution to an 18th century problem, and it excuses filth. If you look at the FDA right now, it has a standard called the Pasteurized Milk Ordinance, and that excuses the filth of the 1800s. And so when you've got all these big, huge dairies producing milk that goes off to be pasteurized, cheap milk for human consumption that's pasteurized, no bioactives, none of these wonderful anti-inflammatory components found in the milk. It's all denatured. Does it taste very good? It's hard to digest. It's very allergenic. That milk doesn't like raw milk coming around them from the farm to consumer in a brand that shows how dirty their milk is, and it has to be pasteurized. The way we produce our milk is very, very clean, and we test every batch with a PCR system, which actually detects any pathogenic bacteria, which randomly, several times a year, we find. And we divert that milk immediately. So you don't have human illness with the technologies we have, but you have all these bioactives and all these fantastic functional proteins that are there, put there by nature, God, pick your choice, that is fantastic for the gut microbiome. Remember this, raw milk is the first food of life for mammals. It's breast milk. And there's no argument at the American Medical Association or the FDA, USDA, the World Health Organization that breastfeeding isn't fantastic. But if you go from breast milk to another cow or goat, sheep, horse, reindeer, camel, they freak out. And it's the industry that's freaking out because what you're doing is taking raw milk from the farmer directly to the consumer and bypassing the industrial system using different standards. And that's what I think answers your question is it's very, very disruptive because we're doing it clean and cold and tested, and they're doing it dirty and whatever they do, right? Commingling all the milk from all the dairies together, and they have to pasteurize it. And it would be very dangerous if they didn't, because the human immune system is not able to tolerate that level of pathogenic bacteria like Listeria, E. coli, Salmonella, Campylobacter in milk, because we don't have the really robust immune systems we used to have. And some of these bugs have become really super bugs in antibiotic resistance because of the antibiotics we're using. So it's a very deep, broad conversation. But we are now a threat because we bypass the industrial system and go directly to people that love it.
So you're saying the pasteurized milk from the supermarket, they couldn't even switch to raw milk if they wanted to?
They could if they wanted to, but that industrial system can't switch if they wanted to.
Okay.
The farmer themselves would have to make a very conscious choice to do three things: get trained, use high standards, which are completely different than the ones they're using, and do testing. And we have 65 farmers across America right now that are listed, quote, certified by the Raw Milk Institute that do exactly what I just said, which is they're highly trained, they have a food safety plan, and they use high standards. We have to meet and exceed pasteurized milk standards without pasteurizing. They do that by being clean and cold and testing, not by doing some cooking process. So that farmer, if he was going to make a conscious decision to stop providing milk to the processor and become direct to consumer, would have to become well-trained, use different standards, and do testing. And not a lot of farmers are up for that. It's not easy to do.
And explain again what they do. What is pasteurized milk, or what is the milk in the supermarket? Like, what is the process behind it?
The standards that are used universally across America are pretty consistent for pasteurized milk. And that means this. You have a dairy, and you're selling your milk to a processor, and all of the neighborhood dairies are doing the same exact thing. A truck goes around and picks up all the milk, and all that milk goes into one silo, one container, one bulk tank. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. All your neighbors and everything are on the same route. That milk gets collected and then sent to a big, huge processing plant that then pasteurizes it 3 times. Not one time, it's 3 times now. Where they send it to very high temperatures several times to kill off the pathogenic bacteria which is in that milk. Because under the federal standard of the pasteurized milk ordinance, there's never any testing for pathogenic bacteria because it's always present. Listeria is there, E. coli is 157H7 is there, Salmonella is there, Campylobacter is there, and there may be some other pathogens too. All that's commingled together. And the milk prices that these farmers receive is extremely low, lower than the cost of production, especially right now. There's some big problems right now in America because the export of the milk in dried powdered milk and other things has been really under a lot of pressure because of the tariffs. So the standards are low prices, no testing for pathogenic bacteria, commingled milk of the entire community going to a processing plant where they pasteurize it at high temperature, which kills the bacteria and the good stuff, all the good bacteria as well as the bioactives. They homogenize it, which means they break up the butterfat globule, which is really critical because 60% of the bioactives found in these good things we like, functional proteins and things like that, found in raw milk are carried on the butterfat globule. So if you not only heat it, it kills the bioactives because they're heat sensitive, but you also destroy the butterfat globule through homogenization, through forcing it through these little pinholes, which breaks up these butterfat globules. You don't have any of the good stuff getting through. And then you also standardize it, which means you take off the butterfat and you add in dried powdered milk, you add in some vitamins that have been depleted from the pasteurization. So you're doing a lot of processing. Right now, there's a big movement in America to eat less processed or unprocessed foods, whole foods. Well, pasteurized milk is a highly processed food. And these poor guys that are out there right now doing this milk that gets intended for pasteurization are under a lot of pressure. Losing 5 dairies a day in America because the prices are so low, the competition is so severe because there's overproduction for that available domestic market because of the tariff deal. So the gross overproduction causes low milk prices. And then there's a rejection by the consumers that it doesn't taste that good. It has kind of a burnt flavor. And then also the bioactives are missing. So it's highly allergenic and hard to digest. If you go to the FDA website and you ask the question, most allergenic food in America, pasteurized milk is number 1. But yet raw milk is not allergenic. Studies across Europe show that very clearly to be true. The raw whey proteins actually stabilize the mast cells, the MAST cells, which are the origin of histamines that releases histamines in your body. And the whey proteins in raw form actually stabilize the mast cells and keep them from releasing histamines, which is part of the cytokine storm and part of the histamine release that causes allergies. So the kids that drink raw milk have a much decreased incidence of asthma, allergies, ear infections, and are very resistant to flu and colds. So they may get a cold, but they're over with it in 24 hours and they do great when everybody else is down for a week. So these kids have a stronger immune system as a result of the gut microbiome, which is 80% of your immune system, being stronger because they consume raw milk. So you can see the differences between production, where I'm selling our milk directly to people from our farm, our systems, our testing, never gets commingled with anybody else's milk, goes directly to the store at Raw Farm, consumed by people. You know who the farmer is. You're talking to him right now. And it's not commingled with anybody else's milk. It's our milk. Versus a farmer that's doing production for pasteurization, he doesn't know any of his consumers because all the milk from all the hundreds of dairies gets put into one tank and it's in somebody else's brand, somebody else's truck going out, highly processed, and nobody knows who that farmer is. A completely different set of production standards, completely.
Man. So the best way would be to then go from breast milk to raw milk.
Yes.
For children.
Yes. Breast milk is absolutely the champion.
The closest you can even get back to breast milk, kind of.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a member of the International Milk Genomics Consortium at UC Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear these PhDs speak every year at these big conferences about the similarities between breast milk and cow's milk. What's interesting is qualitatively, the quality of the proteins, the fats, the sugars, the kinds of proteins are almost identical between cow's milk and breast milk. The amount, the quantitative is different than the qualitative. So quality is exactly the same or practically exactly the same. But the level of fat may be different. The level of sugar may be different. The level of protein may be different, but the quality is practically identical. And that's why babies and children can thrive on raw milk. They love the functional proteins there because every protein has accompanying it an enzyme, a protease or a peptidase, which actually makes it functional. If you drink pasteurized milk, all those proteins have been denatured. All you have is the amino acid. You don't have any of the functional enzymes that go with them. That extends shelf life, yeah. It's because it's so dead, you get a long shelf life. But you don't get the functionality, which is, remember that raw milk does 3 things. It nourishes, directs, and protects. Nourishment, direction, and protection. So when the baby's born, comes out of the birth canal, all wet from mama's birth canal, and it gets put on the mama's breast and starts suckling on the colostrum for a day or two, the baby is now not connected to mom directly through an umbilical cord. It's connected through mom through the breast. So the breast milk is actually the thing that nourishes the baby completely, not even water, only raw milk. It's a perfect food for the first food of life to establish the gut microbiome, which is the immune system. And it directs by all kinds of wonderful functional proteins that go in there and say, hey, baby, you're confused. Do this, do that, do this, do that to stay healthy. And then protects. There's actually things in raw milk which protects the baby from getting infected. Bifidobacteria is one of them. So it's a powerful tool of nature. It's a blueprint of life for mammals that has evolved for, pick your number, 100,000, 500,000, a million years, where only the best survived. And this is the science of breast milk, which is very similar, if not exactly the same, as the science of other mammals' milk. So for 10, 12,000 years, mankind has thrived on raw milk from a cow, goat, sheep, horse, camel, reindeer, donkey, camel around the world. And so the scientists tell us that it was one of the most decisive things to not have to hunt, fish, farm. You could take your food with you wherever you went. You had cheese, butter, cream, and all that kind of stuff, which are whole foods, which you can nourish yourself nearly completely on. In fact, some people have literally, they call themselves lactovores. That's all they eat is milk. Lactovores. So around the world, the Maasai in Kenya, very, African black guys, Maasai warriors, they hunt, lions with spears. They always win the Olympic marathons, These guys drink raw milk and blood, and they don't have lactose intolerance. They come to America, they have lactose intolerance with pasteurized milk. We call it pasteurization intolerance. Raw milk's for everybody. You go to Mongolia, Chinese in Mongolia, they drink mare's milk all the time.
What's that?
Mare's milk is from cows, from horses. Horse milk. And they make a kefir, they make all kinds of things from mare's milk, which is horse milk. No problem with lactose intolerance. Very robust, strong people, warrior people, surviving very low temperatures and really robust, tough conditions in Mongolia. They come into Beijing, China, where everything's pasteurized, and they have a problem with digesting the milk because of pasteurization intolerance. The enzymes are missing. The bacteria is missing that helps digest the food. Remember this. This is very important for your listeners to hear this. Jacob, let me tell you what. Dr. Bruce German, who's the founder of the International Milk Genomics Consortium, Professor E.C. Davis, sharp guy. He said, raw milk is a whole food. Baby cannot digest a partial food because their digestive tract is not complete yet. It's immature. It needs to have a food that when it gets a warm space, it breaks down all by itself. It breaks down by self-digestion because it has all the elements to digest itself. Because it doesn't have those other things developed in the gut microbiome or in the digestive tract that a more mature adult might have. So it's a perfect matchup for self-digesting, protective, nourishing, directing food that nourishes your gut. The neat thing about that is, let's say you've got Crohn's disease or you've got celiac or some kind of a digestive problem with ulceration in your gut and your gut's really messed up. You can start from scratch and go back to raw milk and raw milk kefir, which is a fermented form of raw milk, and actually recover your gut through eating whole food nutrition. Olive oil is a fantastic thing to put in there. Bone broths with the colloids, vitamin D3, all these wonderful basic foods we can consume actually decreases inflammation in your gut, and you can recover fully from an inflamed gut. Where the doctors say food doesn't matter, I call BS. Food does matter. It is critical. And what you eat matters tremendously in terms of the inflamed gut, which drives your immune system and drives all kinds of things in your gut, chronic disease. So raw milk is a foundational food that is very, very functional and is delicious. One thing people say about raw milk is it's delicious, but it can be consumed by everybody. The Maasai, the Mongolians, everybody around the world, even American Indians can digest raw milk, where they cannot digest pasteurized milk because they don't have the lactase persistence gene, which is found in Northern Europe. So it's raw milk's for everybody. Literally, it's for everybody.
What happens in lactose-free milk?
Okay.
What is that?
Well, what they do in lactose-free milk is they pre-digest the lactose by putting the lactase enzyme in the milk. And that's for those that are selling pasteurized milk, that they can't tolerate the lactose sugar because they're not making the lactase enzyme in their gut. Remember that lactase is made by bacteria. Bifidobacteria, coliform bacteria, lactobacillus bacteria make that enzyme for you in your gut. Well, raw milk has those bacteria that make that enzyme for you in your gut. So you drink raw milk, or especially raw milk kefir, and you'll have those populations of beneficial bacteria that go in and recolonize your gut. And when it recolonizes the gut, then that bacteria is there when lactose comes along from the milk to create lactase to digest the lactose. Remember that even in pasteurized yogurt that has those beneficial bacteria added into it after pasteurization, people don't get lactose intolerance with pasteurized yogurt because those bacteria are there. They've been put back in. So it's very self-evident that what's the problem with lactose intolerance is pasteurization intolerance and the loss of those enzymes being created by the bacteria that are naturally found in whole food.
So somebody that thinks they're lactose intolerant might want to try raw milk.
Here's the thing. It's almost been like a blame game. Like, you're not good enough, you're broken, you've got something wrong with you by calling you lactose intolerant when there's nothing wrong with you at all. Your body just recognizes the fact you're eating a partial food. You don't have the whole food. So people feel very, very relieved when they start drinking raw milk and find out, wow, there's nothing wrong with me at all. And boy, this is delicious because they're eating a whole food, not a partial food that is intended to be extended shelf life, right? Because they're trying to get 60, 90 days of shelf life with ultra high temperatures to make it really dead. Well, that dead process is to kill the bacteria, which would be beneficial to you to create lactase. Remember, lactose is consumed and digested by lactase. Lactose is the sugar, lactase is the enzyme, and bacteria in your gut make lactase. You can actually precipitate lactose intolerance by taking a bunch of antibiotics, killing off the beneficial bacteria, and your gut doesn't digest lactose at all because you've killed off all the beneficial bacteria that are residing in your gut, and you have to recover that bacterial colonization in your intestines before you can actually digest lactose again.
So is raw milk not only a threat to the dairy industry, but also to pharma?
Yeah, P-H-A-R-M-A, pharma. Not farm as in F-A-R-M-A. But you're exactly right, Jacob. It's a threat to pharma. I don't think they're sensing it quite as much as dairy is yet because it's still kind of a smaller niche. But boy, I tell you what, raw milk's emerging quickly. People get it because they've experienced an emerging change in their gut. And remember, 80% of your immune system is your gut microbiome. So yes, it is. There's nothing wrong with pharma. It's just that it's been prioritized number one, and it's the only solution we're given instead of a backup solution to after food fails. So you should be using preventative medicine, which is exercise, sunshine, love, and good food, right? And hydration to heal, protect, and prevent long-term chronic problems or acute problems that may need a drug. Yeah, we still need drugs. I get that. But we should be preventing most of it before it ever occurs so we're not so dependent on pharma. That's the big problem. We've been made dependent on pharma as the sole solution. Medical doctors are not being trained properly so how to use nutrition to prevent disease. And as a result, we become this merry-go-round of more and more disease and chronic inflammation. And the solution is only pharma versus the farm. So I'm farmers and we're pharmacies 100%. I really am. I'm not against pharma, but I'm saying it's the wrong priority. It should be secondary, not primary.
What's up with the non-fat milk for like kids and stuff? Schools.
Remember, 80% of these beneficial bioactives like lactoferrin, alkaline phosphatase, even some of the bacteria are carried on the butterfat globule. Now, excuse my cough this morning.
I think I've also heard like that is like, it's like low-fat milk is just more watered down, so it makes even more profit. Is that true or?
Totally true. Totally true. You've heard correctly.
Yeah.
If you bring in whole milk from a dairy, it has 3.5 to 4% butterfat, and you take that off, you can make other products from the cream. You can make sour cream, you can make butter, you can make cream. You do all kinds of things with that butterfat, and then sell the skim off to be consumed as fluid. When in fact, in our market, skim is worthless. Nobody wants that. They want the whole fat along with the proteins and everything as a whole food. Because if you take the fat out, you're losing the majority of the benefits of raw milk. The butterfat globule is a miraculous thing. At the International Milk Genomics Consortium that I attend every year, the PhDs that research milk talk about the butterfat globule ad nauseum forever. They talk about the butterfat globule. It's a multi-layer structure that is an incredible digestive fiber. Whoever thought that fat would be a fiber? It's actually made of butyrates. And those butyrates nourish the Akkermansia bacteria in your gut, which make the mucosal lining, which is a very, very important part of your immune system. You have the villi and the tissue, but inside of that, you have the mucosal lining, which lines the intestine, which is where the colonization of bacteria live. Some of them live there. Well, the Akkermansia bacteria feed on butyrates, and that butterfat globule is made of butyrates. So there's all kinds of really fascinating things going on between butterfat being a super important dietary fiber, and doctors that we talk to, the research scientists say, it's so incredibly unique, they are considering an immune cell because of so many immune factors that are carried on it. So when you think about skim milk being fed to kids, it's a double whammy. It's not only pasteurized, which is rendered completely inert in terms of any kind of bioactive, wonderful, health-giving properties, but it doesn't have the butterfat, which is carrying these good stuff, which is dead anyway if you pasteurize. So it's missing the good stuff, and it's dead. How good is that? If we're trying to have a mirror image of mother's milk, then it needs to have good levels of butterfat, 4% or more, and that butterfat should be carrying the bioactives intended by nature to the baby. And pasteurized milk, especially skim milk, is not doing any of that. So I think we're making a good step in the right direction by saying whole milk back in schools. That's a good thing in the food pyramid. But the next step is, I'm sorry, the bioactives are missing. Got the fat there, but what are they carrying? Nothing, because it's been killed by heat. I don't think Bobby has the guts right yet to go out and say raw milk, although he's taken shots with Paul Saladino in the White House of raw milk. But it's kind of a bridge too far because the industrial pressures are so high. The other thing that's really, really hard is in America, the FDA has no standards for raw milk except for pasteurized milk. And I would agree with the FDA. That needs to be pasteurized because the standards are so sloppy, so weak, so excusing of filth that you better pasteurize it, right? But they do not have any standards for human consumption raw milk. None, zero. And they refuse to meet about it, talk about it, because it'd be kind of embarrassing to talk about it because you're excusing so much filth. You're saying that the time in the 1880s persists to today. You're saying it's okay to bring in any kind of crap into the thing to be pasteurized because that's what happened in the 1880s. I'm sorry, this is 2026, 130 years later. We know about bacteria. We know about pathogenic bacteria. We know about clean conditions. We know how to do this. We have standards and technology to be able to do this, to do it very reliably. And the FDA won't talk to us. So, yeah, it's a threat. And skim milk, the whole milk thing, and with Bobby there, I have hope for it, but I don't know that it's going to happen anytime soon because the pressures from industry are so high. And the pharmaceutical pressures on the FDA are extremely high. Because they own the FDA. They own it. People that work at the FDA retired in golden parachutes to work for pharma. So where's food involved with that? It's not even in the tent, right? So we are really up against a huge Goliath, a big mountain to climb when you're talking about raw milk because so many people lose money and the farmer makes money. Hell, the farmer, they're supposed to be bankrupt all the time, right? So the processors make money and the people all make money around the whole thing. It's not the farmer. The farmer is sustainable with raw milk and selling directly to people. And so it's a very, very big paradigm shift. It's also very, very disruptive.
I think you said it in the beginning, the fear for raw milk comes from the 1800s.
Yes. It comes from two places. We have a culture in America which has indoctrinated people for the last 60 or 70 years to be fearful of raw milk. Based on what happened in the late 1800s, 1850s, 70s, and 90s, a lot of children died from raw milk. It was ugly because of the conditions that were there at that time. In 1893, a doctor by the name of Henry Coit established the American Association of Medical Milk Commissions. And that milk was coming from the farms out in the countryside. It was chilled rapidly in cold water. It was from cows on pasture in sunshine, clean udders. And they actually had developed the basics of a microscope so you could actually look at the milk to see how many bacteria they had in it. So they could actually see that's clean milk and that's dirty milk. That milk was going to the Mayo Clinic to heal people and was very effective. Very effective. This is pre-pharma. At the same time, there was a guy named Strauss. And Strauss brought in the parboiler, which was basically a big brass bucket or bowl that you would put your dirty milk in the city, and you'd cook it by putting a fire into it, and it would boil the milk. And in that boiling process reduced the death rate tremendously. Still had dirty water, which caused problems. But the bottom line was he was considered a hero, a philanthropic humanitarian hero, because this cheap milk that was being made in these brewery dairies in downtown Philadelphia, New York, Boston, whatever, was being rendered safe by cooking. And so that scientific breakthrough was embraced by industry to make cheap milk for people, quote, safely. But it lost all these beneficial things put there by nature. So that's where the fork in the road was in 1893 between Strauss and Coit. A little question for you.
Okay.
The AAMMC, the American Association of Medical Milk Condition, was the certifying force behind Dr. Coit's work. Started in 1893. Was the last dairy to have that certification?
I have no idea.
It was right behind you here in Altadena. It was the Altadena Dairy, right here in LA. And they had a certification until 1999. And that's where we took over at Raw Farm and Organic Pastures. Was when Altadena went out of business. They sold their land because their dairies were worth a fortune down here for real estate. They sold out. And people were screaming, we want our raw milk. And they reached out to us and we brought it to them. So that was the genesis of our beginning. The American Association of Medical Milk Commissions carried that from 1893 to 1999, which was 106 years.
Did you always knew the benefit of raw milk, or did your view on it change over time?
Well, as a paramedic, I had been a paramedic since from 1981 to 1996 for 15 years. I knew the value of breastfeeding, but I didn't know anything about raw milk. It was not on my radar screen at all. I learned about it when people called me saying, we want you to bring your milk down to Los Angeles. We were selling our milk to be pasteurized at Organic Valley, which is an organic creamery production facility. And when they called me, I'll give the credit to James Stewart at the garage down here in Venice Beach.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Mark, there's no milk in California. There's only 12 cows up in Santa Clara. There's no raw milk. We're starving down here. You better, how fast can you drive in your Suburban down here with raw milk that's bottled out of your bulk tank? And I didn't know anything about it. I was in the learning curve, but I was always wanting to serve humanity. I wanted to serve people, not the processor. That was my goal as a retiring paramedic. Was my goal is to serve people, not the processor. And that became fully embraced when James called me. And my wife and I had 150 half gallons of milk. We put ice chests in the back of our Suburban. Excuse me. And we drove down to LA into Venice Beach to a place called the Garage. And there were people waiting there. I don't know how many people were there. The place was just packed with people. And they started grabbing the milk out of the back of the truck and throwing $10 and $20 bills in the car saying, come back tomorrow, you're all out, And they came to us with stories about how their gut was different, how their children were strong, the teeth, immune system, things were, all these wonderful stories. And I was just soaking it up like a sponge. My wife's a nurse. So we just soaked up this information from them. And we did come back. We came back quickly. And we also built a small creamery and told Organic Valley, no more. We're going to do everything raw. And we were in hundreds of stores within a year or two. And James became our distributor for 3 or 4 years with the truck, going to the stores in LA. So that was the genesis. That was the beginning and foundation of me, was hearing from consumers that they wanted our milk raw. And then I became a tenacious student of raw milk. And now I'm kind of a pseudo expert on the subject around the world. I'm asked to speak on it.
And when was that?
That was 1999. Yep.
And is it only about raw milk, or is it about cheese, butter? Everything has to be raw to have those enzymes, those bacteria.
The bioactives are protected in raw form. If you never take the milk above 100 degrees temperature, they start getting deactivated at 110 or so. Think about your brain. If you have a severe fever, you start losing brain cells at 106, 107 degrees body temperature. So you start losing the enzymes and things start going crazy at about that same temperature. But it's a curve where it doesn't all get destroyed until 140, 150 degrees. But if you took your body to 140, you'd be deader than dead. You'd be very dead quick. So at 105, 106, your body starts to have a real problem with temperature. So does raw milk. So yes, butter is 87% butterfat, which means you have 87% of the weight of that product, butter, is the bioactive rich butterfat globule, 87% butterfat. So you have a tremendous high level of these bioactives being carried in butter. Cream, 40% butterfat, has 40% butterfat globules carrying these bioactives. It's a force of nature. It's incredible food is cream. Cream is really, really powerful. The cheese, we make the cheese the French way, never above body temperature. So it retains all these wonderful bioactives like alkaline phosphatase, which is studied in Europe and found to be extremely powerful, good stuff. And the French paradox, Dr. J.P. Lyles back in 2015 had a big study. It's now on PubMed about how the French eat a couple of kilos of French cheese a week. The French do. They have very low incidences of cardiac disease, and they also drink red wine a little bit too. So red wine. But the bottom line is that he thought that the French paradox, which is the idea that maybe if you drank red wine, you had protective event in your body from getting cardiac disease, wasn't maybe perhaps so much the resveratrol found in the red wine. It was actually all the raw cheese they were eating. And the fact that raw cheese is very anti-inflammatory and very good for your arteries and circulation. So yeah, it's about all the things we produce: butter, cream, cheese, kefir, and raw milk. The kefir is basically raw milk that's been fermented for a day and a half, and it has extreme bioactive activity and very, very probiotic because the bacteria levels are above 10 million per milliliter. And there's a diversity of hundreds of different kinds of bacteria. Remember, yogurt only has maybe 5 or 6 kinds of bacteria on a good day after being pasteurized. Well, raw milk kefir has hundreds of bacteria plus 12 intentional bacteria you add in. So you have hundreds of bacteria from the background flora of the milk that's in there, it's never destroyed, plus 12 more. So extreme diversity of bacteria. Diversity of bacteria is one of the key points of having a strong immune system. The more diverse bacteria you ingest in your lower gut, the more you create antibodies to a diversity of bacteria. And the more antibodies you have, the more breadth of bandwidth of protection you have, the more protected you are from a threat that comes at you. If you have protection for a narrow bandwidth, then you have a protection from a narrow bandwidth. If you have very diverse bacteria bandwidth, then you're protected from much more diverse threat that comes at you from nature. And that's why people that drink raw milk are very protected from things like flu, colds. Even though I've got a small one right now, it's not bad. It's almost over. And it's very, very protected for your immune system. That biodiversity is really, really key.
Where does this idea come from that fat is bad for you? The whole low fat butter, low fat milk, everything has to be low fat, even though fat seems to be so beneficial.
Ansel Keys in the 1960s was a researcher. And he thought, well, I'm going to show everybody that low fat's the way to go. The data he had was so skewed and so screwed up. If you read the studies, it showed selective choosing of data. It was not actually showing the whole picture. And so he started this whole trend in the 60s of low fat, low fat, low fat. Mm-hmm. Low fat made us fat. Low fat made us fat. The fat globule actually is very glycemic index balancing. When you eat just lactose by itself without the fat, you get a shot of sugar. But with the fat and lactose together, it's very moderating. You have a low glycemic index food when you have a whole food, this raw milk. But if you're just eating sugar, you get sugar spikes. So it's very interesting how low the glycemic index is with whole raw milk, where pasteurized skim milk has a fairly high one. It's different because the fats aren't there. So that's pretty much been shown to be a complete farce, is that a low-fat diet is going to help you get skinny because low-fat actually makes you fat.
But they shouldn't only update the pyramid, they should also update the whole pasteurization process.
Well, now you're talking radical change. Only you could do it, Jacob. Let me tell you something. These guys will lose their paychecks with saying that kind of stuff. Inside the room where they discuss the food pyramid, it's a food fight, literally. Because if you get to the top of the pyramid, then your products are promoted. All about the money. Because big ag is industry, processing is industry, contracts with Cisco systems with the schools is industry. You get change going on too radically, people start losing paychecks and start losing market. People get really, really upset. And that's what happened with Jamie Oliver here in Los Angeles a few years back when Jamie was here. He's a British chef, and he was suggesting that the school districts go get whole unprocessed foods. He got chased out of town, man. It was not a pretty sight. So when you disrupt the paradigm of who gets money, you're really rocking the show. So what you're suggesting is radical change. Unfortunately, in America, with the culture we have, that doesn't happen because the political powers are the way they are. But what can happen is slow change based on the truth. And they may have the guns and the money, but I got the truth and the moms. That's really true. Because you build a market, nobody's getting sick, everybody's absolutely healthy and happy, and kids are strong teeth and strong immune systems, fewer infections, don't get colds, or if they do, they get over it real quick. And they're going to buy more and more. And we've been doing this now for 26 years. That market building changes the political force because the dollar voting shifts the allegiance behind what the moms buy. And so after 15, 20 years of doing this, you build a market, which is now raw milk in California is almost pseudo-normalized because it's available everywhere and people are having a very good experience with it. So the change comes through market building and teaching about raw milk, not selling it. Because you'll run up against a Mount Everest of resistance at the FDA, pharma, policies. You have to also recognize that we have 50 states in America, and every state has their own law about raw milk, and there's no universal law for raw milk. There's no standards for raw milk in America. The FDA says raw milk's horrible, 1 drop will kill you. That's what they tell you. It's not true at all. Maybe 1 drop of their milk might, because it's filled with pathogens and excusing filth, I agree. But not 1 drop of raw milk intended for human consumption with high standards and produced differently with clean udders and no commingling of milk and testing and all those kinds of things. So we have 50 different states in 50 different states of chaos. California has very strict standards for raw milk. Nevada doesn't have any standards at all. It's completely illegal there. That's just in Las Vegas down the street. Oregon, you have to own 3 cows. Cow share. Washington has legal raw milk like California. Arizona has legal raw milk like California. So does New Mexico. But you go Texas, you have to buy the milk off the farm. And the standards are not measured very well there. Pennsylvania, it's kind of like California. You can buy raw milk in a store there. Not a lot of it. A lot of it just bought on the farm from Amish. But there's only 12 states where you can actually legally buy raw milk off a shelf in a store. But there's, 38 other states where you can't. So it's really a state of chaos. And I think industry likes to keep it that way because when raw milk gets its act together, it's going to be a dominant force. It's already a dominant force at the Raw Milk Institute, where we established common standards, which are used around the world in the last 15 years to produce raw milk, and people know what it is, that it's low coliform, sanitary, rapidly chilled, delicious, going to last 3 weeks, and pathogen detection is at 0, right at 0. So it's a paradigm shift. Very, very, very inconvenient, uncomfortable truth for those that look at what they're doing and having us compete against them.
Yeah, I think most people are not, or I wasn't aware that like if I go to the store and I don't want processed food and I buy a single ingredient, which is milk, food, I would expect not a very highly processed food. Or the milk, I expect it says organic, it says grass-fed, grass-finished or whatever. And I would not expect a highly processed.
Well, you go down to many different brands that sell grass-fed, organic, certified, all kinds of great certificates for production. A lot of that stuff going on. And it says UHT right next to it. UHT is ultra high temperature processed, not HTST, which is the lower temperature, or VAT pasteurization, which is the lowest temperature at 145 degrees. It's ultra high temperature processed. And it's also homogenized. It's standardized, and it's had vitamins added back into it. Those are synthetic vitamins. So by definition, it's ultra processed food. But yet, it's masquerading as a fantastic health food. I'll say something here that probably a lot of people haven't heard about. The baby formula bakers that make this organic box milk, there's something called heterocyclic aromatic amines, HAAs, heterocyclic aromatic amines that are found in that. A big study done in Turkey many years ago. It's been deeply suppressed. This is the ultra high temperature pasteurized, ultra pasteurized, UP, which is mostly shelf stable, where you don't have to refrigerate it. It's a little box milk that you get organic for kids. That HAA is a cancer-producing thing. Causes cancer. It's considered carcinogenic, but yet it's masqueraded as good for kids. That's the ultra high, super processed brick milk. These little boxes that they sell. So you look it up. Big Turkish PubMed publication about HAAs being very high in that milk. When you converted the proteins to that kind of processing, it's toxic. Another thing that people don't like to hear, I'll tell it to you, and that is the number one most allergenic food in America is pasteurized milk. Number one. FDA website. That's not my data, that's their data. Number one. Well, what happens when people become allergic to a food? They have an allergic reaction. The most severe allergic reaction is when you call 911. It's called an anaphylactic reaction. Anaphylaxis can kill you. Shuts down your airways, you can't breathe, and you literally die if you don't get an epinephrine shot from a paramedic right away or CPR or something to save your life. Saw a few of those as a paramedic for 16 years. Nobody died in my ambulance. I was quick with the epinephrine, but nonetheless, what happens to those people? They haven't even recorded the deaths from all the pasteurized milk allergies. You have to go to the registry for allergic deaths in America. It's a private registry to find that data. The CDC does not include that data in their deaths from food. They commingle it all together with peanuts and everything else to have that commingled data. So pasteurized milk is not identified separately as something that causes death to kids because of allergic reactions. And there's been 2 or 3 kids a year that die from allergies to pasteurized milk, when in fact, raw milk is non-allergenic. So in my opinion, structurally, pasteurized milk is innately defective, and it is produced with standards which are very loose, allowing for all kinds of filth. So what I'm saying is very disruptive. Doesn't make people feel very comfortable about pasteurized milk at all, but it's the truth. The bottom line is raw milk produced by a farmer that knows what they're doing, well-trained with high standards in testing, is an ultimate food. It's an ultimate food, but it's not easy to do. It's not easy to create all that milk and do it cheap. So the big industry doesn't like to see or hear that because they can't cheat farmers, paying them cost below cost of production, and releasing 5 dairies a day in America and a dairy every 5 days in California because of these low milk prices being paid to the farmers that are overproducing this dirty milk. So, even if a farmer did invest in doing clean milk to be pasteurized, who cares? That milk's being combined with his neighbor's milk in the same tank. So he'll be a fool to produce really clean milk because he's not being paid for it. So what we're talking about is extremely disruptive, and Al Gore would say this is a very inconvenient truth.
So would you buy or drink pasteurized milk?
If I was starving someplace, I would absolutely if I was starving. But if I had a choice, I would never do so. But I know a lot about that. And most people that drink raw milk would choose not to, knowing what they know about pasteurized milk.
So when it says ingredients and it says just milk, there's synthetic vitamins
Added.
They don't have to write that on there?
No. It says on the front, they're actually very proud of it, D3 added,
Yeah.
vitamin D added, vitamin A and D added, because those things are there as a bioactive in the raw milk and destroyed by pasteurization. The perfect combination of minerals, vitamins, enzymes, bacteria, fats, everything, proteins, sugars are in raw milk. And when you pasteurize it, they're no longer the perfect combination of things like that. And the bioavailability becomes very, very low as well. The building blocks are there, yeah. But how do you build with no workers? The workers are the functional proteins that get things to go together in an organized fashion. So Mother Nature's got it going on. She's right. The blueprints of life are right. But we've done some very, how do I say this? In the late 1930s and early 1940s, when we created antibiotics, we saved a lot of lives. Phenomenal tool to save hearing, pneumonia, all kinds of stuff. Soldiers in war were saved from infection. There was a backside to the antibiotic revolution. And that was that bacteria want to live. They're the first forms of life on Earth. The archaea bacteria still live in our guts today. We're the first identified bacteria to be on Mother Nature's Earth. Bacteria want to live. They adapt to the threats they get from antibiotics. And now we have antibiotic-resistant bacteria that penicillin can't kill. And now we're in the third and fourth and fifth generation of antibiotics to kill bacteria that cause infections in ours. But what we've done is we've changed our gut microbiome to the fact where we've killed off the bacteria so badly that we no longer have that bandwidth of protection. And we are immune compromised as a nation. And we've also lost that mucosal lining inside of the gut, which actually protects from having things get into our blood systems. That digestive protective bacteria colonization area is missing or very, very thin. So we got ourselves backed into a corner now where we're running out of antibiotics, losing 22,000 people a year from antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections in hospitals mostly. C. diff is Clostridium difficile is killing people left and right. And there's no further generation of antibiotic that we can go get because we can't create them. We can't invent them to go after these superbugs. We've actually created, by creating a threat to them, they've overcome that by genetic adaptation. Because life on Earth is based on bacteria. If we go to another planet and look for life, we don't look for monkeys hanging off of trees. We look at bacteria and water and sunshine and the things that would create a life form that would evolve. And so we've actually backed ourselves into a real serious corner now. And it's my responsibility as an educator to teach people, hey, wait a minute, let's back up a little bit here. The more you use antibiotics, the more they don't work. Save them. It's like a cop with a gun in his holster. If you pull it out all the time shooting everybody, you're not going to be a cop very long and nobody's going to like you, right? You're abusing your power. What you need is keep it in your holster and only use it for the absolute last ditch, because the same thing with antibiotics. If you use them all the time, they don't work. You use them only when you absolutely have to have them. And what do you use instead? Kefir, probiotics, whole food nutrition to build your immune system and build that wonderful biome in your gut, which protects you from getting sick. Or if you get sick, you can recover quickly yourself. So antibiotics have got a backside to them, right? They've got the save your life, but they also got take your life if you use them too much. So we're now starting to recognize and teaching medical schools that we better pull back a little bit on antibiotics being prescribed for everything all the time and start preventing so we don't have more antibiotic-resistant infections. So there's a lot of medicine going on here in terms of Mother Nature's blueprints of life and how we're supposed to thrive on Earth.
Can I get you some more water?
A little bit, yeah.
All right.
Good. A lot of stuff here, huh? Thanks, buddy.
All right. We're back. So I want to know, how much does it matter what the cow eats to the milk?
The cow's health is foundational to safe raw milk. If you cheat the cow, you cheat the milk. So a cow that's eating well with good minerals and enough energy and good fiber and sunshine and grass and all the things you want the cow to eat, then she'll be the healthy cow and she won't have the problems, or at least the odds of having a problem with a healthy cow is extremely low. But if you cheat the cow and she's starved of the minerals, good minerals and good fiber and protein and all the things she needs, she'll get skinny. She'll start robbing herself to make that milk. And that's the cow that will be immunocompromised, that will actually get sick. So cow health starts with good nutrition. And it's very, very important. Flavor can change also. You can have an off flavor if you feed the cow the wrong thing, or she gets into some weeds that aren't good. Onions cause an off flavor in cow's milk if they get into some onions. So yes, nourishment of the cow is very, very foundational to producing good raw milk. Absolutely.
And what do you feed your cows at Raw Farm?
We seasonally graze the cows. So all the cows that produce our milk get out of pasture under the sunshine, not all year long, but when we can. The reason is because, excuse me, sometimes in the summertime it's too hot, 110 degrees, we keep them under shades. In the wintertime, it gets real rainy. You put it on the pasture, they tear up the pasture because it gets too muddy. So seasonally, we graze the cow. Vitamin D is created in the cow's skin by contact with the sun. So very important to have natural conditions where the cows get to lay around in the sunshine and get pasture. But we also add our own silage we make ourselves, non-GMO silage, which is like the whole corn stalk chopped up into little pieces, and we ferment it. It's a good energy source for the cow. We put that into a mix that she gets every day, plus alfalfa. It's ground up and put in the mix as well. It's a good source of protein. They have some non-GMO rolled corn that they get, not very many pounds, maybe 3 pounds a day. They get some whole canola meal. The entire canola plant is ground up in pieces and put in there. They get mineral mix with all kinds of different minerals that are important to make sure. We have seasonally, we get citrus, like oranges, and the cows love oranges. And that citrus actually adds a lot to their gut microbiome as well. So it's a combination of all kinds of stuff that we work with a nutritionist to make sure that cow has everything she needs to be as healthy as she can possibly be. And they come and measure the cow's manure every week, fresh manure on the ground that they poop out, to see what the cow took from the feed we gave them, make sure they're not deficient. So healthy cow is the beginning.
Yeah, I think I remember when I was in Texas, sometimes the cow would eat the wrong grass and,
Yeah.
and it would be very bitter.
Yes.
And they would all like it. But for me, who has never tasted it, it was very strange. And you'd almost think the milk is bad, but then they told me that they just ate some sort of grass.
That's exactly right. And that can happen.
Yeah.
So we watch our pastures very closely to make sure we don't have those weeds coming up that cows might get into that cause the flavor changes. Yep.
And what about the how long does it take from the milking to the store? And how much does that matter?
Well, the way we produce milk, which is very clean udder, rapidly chilled down to 36 degrees within 2 minutes. And then we hold the milk in a big silo tank for about 24 hours. During that period of time, we assign a batch to that milk. And we take milk sample to our lab on the farm and test to make sure there's no pathogenic bacteria present. Very rarely do we find one, but once in a while we do. And that milk is then diverted and not used for our purposes. We don't want to have somebody get sick accidentally. So that's the second day it goes into our creamery to be made into all the products. Bottled, butter, cream, cheese, all the products are made on the second day. The third day, it's in the store. It's beginning to be delivered to the store. By the end of the third day, it's on the store shelf. Now, unique to our product, we have 28 trucks going to 500 stores every week. We have about 15 trucks in Los Angeles area. We got 2 or 3 in the Fresno area. We got about 8 or 9 up in Northern California from a hub that we operate. So down near Glendale, we actually have a hub, which is a place we rent. It's about 1 acre. All of our trucks are parked there. The big trucks from Fresno come in. A 53-foot reefer van comes in and parks. We take an empty one home with empty milk crates, and we leave the full one there. We plug it into power, and that is the warehouse that gets delivered into the smaller trucks. The smaller trucks then deliver to all the stores. And if product did not sell the prior week, especially raw milk, we take it back. So the stores do not own the product on the shelf. We do. And if there's any reason it gets a little old, like a week old, we take it back. So the experience that people have at the store, if you're really sharp and you know our schedules and they know when we deliver, you're going to have 3-day-old milk day one when you go into the store. That milk goes 21 days, so 18 days beyond that. It can actually go 25, 26 days if you keep it consistently cold. Remember that milk doubles its bacteria count every 20 minutes when it's warm. So you can make yogurt pretty quick by just getting your milk get warm. Well, we keep it really cold, down to 36, 37 degrees, and the stores keep it below 40 degrees until it's purchased. If you keep it consistently cold, you should have another 2.5 to 3 weeks of that milk before it starts to have a flavor change. That doesn't mean it's becoming dangerous. That means the bacteria that's there, the beneficial yogurt-like bacteria, is started to grow, eating lactose, creating lactic acid, and dropping the pH, making it a little bit more bitter, a little bit more fermented. And that's something that's natural, and that's on its way to becoming like a yogurt product. So we have fresh raw milk with about 21 days of shelf life in California, with 3 of those days prior to delivery to the store. If you go to buy at the store on the farm, cheaper, 30% cheaper, we get to know your customer, and it's on the second day. So right after it's bottled, it's brought there, and it doesn't go to the third day. So you can actually get 2-day raw milk on the farm.
I think I've heard this before, that it doesn't really actually go bad just
No.
because it's bitter.
It evolves. Raw milk becomes a different food. It's a perpetual food. It goes from being a pH of 6.5, 6.6 to a pH of 3.8 over a period of a month by fermentation. It doesn't make it dangerous. It just changes it. The curd and the whey separate. It wants to become cheese or yogurt by itself. It's a phenomenal food. It's really something special.
So it doesn't go bad?
No, it changes.
Like honey.
Yeah. Well, honey's a little different because it's such high sugar levels that
Yeah.
bacteria won't grow in it. Raw milk has all the ingredients for life. Bacteria will grow in it, but that process ferments it. Honey doesn't generally ferment unless you add water. You can do that, but you make mead out of the honey with water and other things. But yeah, raw milk doesn't go bad. It just changes.
What are the benefits of eating fermented food?
Well, fermented food means it went through a process of digestion. It went through the bacteria growing and eating the sugar in the food. That process decreases the pH, makes it acidic, makes things more bioavailable, and actually has self-digestion occurs already. The proteins are broken up. The sugars are definitely digested and reduced. The fibers start a process of being degraded because of the bacterial action on the fibers. So it becomes more bioavailable. It's pre-digested basically for you so that when the nutrients reach your gut, they're in a more bioavailable form. That's the benefit of fermented foods.
It's like a natural long shelf life.
Yeah. And it extends shelf life like crazy. Kimchi, those kinds of things that are fermented last a very long time because they've already been fermented and they have a low pH. pH is acidic.
So the story I read is that like there are people that eat the raw milk extremely like sour.
There's people that actually clabber. It's called clabbering. They clabber the raw milk to ferment it. We've had some people become very frustrated with our dairy products because it's hard to clabber it. Remember, clabbering takes bacteria. Our operations are so clean that there's not a lot of bacteria there to clabber it easily. It will clabber, but it just takes like a week. You have to leave it out on the shelf. What helps you clabber our raw milk faster is take a little bit of, just a pinch of yogurt that has bacteria in it that if that's the way you want to go, and put it in the milk, and it will rapidly go in that direction because you've added bacteria intentionally into the milk to make it clabber faster in that direction. You can add different kinds of bacteria too, lots of different bacteria into raw milk to make it clabber and ferment.
Do you guys ever sell that high cholesterol milk that the cow gives
The colostrum,
right after birth?
colostrum, we used to sell it as a dietary supplement. We did it for like 8-9 years between like 2007 and 2015, I think. Unfortunately, it's not a dairy product because remember, colostrum doesn't come from the lacteal gland. The lacteal gland is where lactation occurs and where milk is produced. Colostrum is a blood component product. It is the first food of life the baby gets, which transfers antibodies and things from inside the circulating blood of the mother's circulation system, kind of a blood transfusion with antibodies. And that's why it is a kind of a yellow. It's not really
like golden.
white. It's golden, yeah, exactly. And that's from all those blood components, the antibodies and stuff. And it's intentionally put into the child's gut because remember, those antibodies are not shared between mother and baby through the umbilical cord. The mom may have a different blood type than the baby, so it doesn't share the same blood. The blood comes from the umbilical cord, goes through an interface where oxygen, sugars, all those kinds of things, but not the blood cells themselves go across the interface at the placenta to go to the baby. So, by nature, you can't share the antibodies between the mom and the baby. So what you have is, at least most of them can't get across there. They're too big. The colostrum is the place where the antibodies are shared through the GI tract. And so that's why colostrum is so antibody rich, along with the other components that come from mom's breast that are not from the lactation. But then suckling on the mom's breast causes the oxytocin response, and the mother starts to produce raw milk. And within a day or two, she starts to produce raw milk, and the colostrum goes away. There's no more colostrum being collected. So colostrum and then raw milk. And the raw milk actually goes to about nourishing the gut, where colostrum was just a transfusion of some nourishment, but mostly the antibodies from mom to baby to protect the baby again, protective.
So you guys stop.
We stopped. Oh, I didn't tell you why. Got so caught up in the physiology here. We were selling something called super leche. Super leche. Nowhere did it say dairy and nowhere did it say milk on the label. And it was a dietary supplement approved by the FDA. But super leche had a little bit of colostrum and raw milk together. Anything that contains colostrum is not considered milk, even though it had a lot of raw milk. So we were selling the heck out of that over in Las Vegas across state lines. Remember, raw milk is prohibited from being transported across state lines. So we had a raw milk-like product being shipped over state lines, sold in health food stores, selling like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the FDA was not happy about that. We'd broken the law. CFR 1240.61, started in 1987, said that raw milk was so dangerous that you couldn't take it across state lines. It had to stay in the state it was produced in. Well, we don't produce that kind of raw milk. We produce very safe raw milk because of testing and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is CFR 1240.61, it's there as a regulation on the books. Well, this super leche was not milk. It had colostrum in it, so it was considered a dietary supplement. So it looked just like milk, tasted just like milk, acted just like milk, but it had measurable amounts of colostrum in it, and we were selling it across state lines. The FDA got very upset. They called up Dr. Beam, who's our safety doctor here in California, who regulates CDFA and the milk products. And he said, Mark, sorry, discontinue that product. The FDA just said that colostrum is unfit for human consumption in raw form. So I made a choice. I was going to fight with them or just comply. And so they said, you can sell it for pet food consumption all you want, but not for human consumption. So at this point, we do not sell it for human consumption. We have it available for those that want it. They come by and get it directly as pet food consumption. But it's a FDA making up their own rules. Nobody got sick. There's no reason for that. But what we were doing is taking raw milk across state lines with a little colostrum in it, and it really pissed them off a lot.
What are,
I've done a few things to piss off the FDA in the
Yeah.
past, but it's disruptive. It's not wrong. It's that it did not meet their standard for being compliant within the rules they have with their big industrial partners that don't like competition. Those dairy guys over in Las Vegas did not like the fact that I was there with super leche, selling to everybody and was doing great. They were very jealous, and they called their friends and said, get this out of here.
what are legal trouble did you get yourself into?
Oh, I've done a few things. We start from the beginning. Back in 2007, 8, we contacted our local FDA representative in Fresno and said, hey, we like to sell pet food across state lines. He said, no problem. Go ahead and do it, and we'll check it afterwards. We don't have a pre-authorization. There's no pre-approval process to do this. Just make sure the label's right, and we're good to go. I said, great. Thank you, Randy. So we did that. We developed a label that we thought was compliant. We thought was compliant. It wasn't compliant, but what we thought it was. And we started shipping raw dairy across state lines to people that wanted it. People were really desperate for raw milk in other states. And so we actually had a mail order system where we actually shipped it across and shipped it by FedEx or UPS to people's houses. Well, the FDA found out about this, and they did a sting operation on us. They ordered some raw milk from us as pet food on the order system, called in our gals, and they asked the question. They said, do you drink this milk too? They said, yeah, we love it. We love it. Way big screw up, because it's for pets. Our employees aren't pets. So they said we misbranded and mislabeled this product, and they did a sting operation on us. It ordered a couple of orders across state lines, and then they had a grand jury that was going to indict me. When I found out about it, I called the FDA immediately. I said, absolutely, I'm guilty of doing this, 100%. Where do I meet with you guys to settle this whole thing? Because I thought I'd made the right label. You're saying that the label wasn't right. How can I make the label right? Well, they dragged me into federal court on that whole thing, and they got an injunction against me to never ship raw milk across state lines based on misbranding using the wrong label on my product. Well, that's been literally for 15 years. We've had that decree upon us. Even though a few years after that, we went and got a legal label that they approved. So we're actually able to do what they enjoin me to not do. Now we can legally do, even though we have an injunction against us. I did something else too. I can't make this one up. I took the PubMed links at the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, which are the archives for rigorous science, the studies, PubMed. You've probably heard of them. PubMed studies is where the science behind all the claims are made, and food science and all kinds of things are studies that are there. Many studies come out of Europe. I took those links and put them on our website and said, look at this. The FDA, NIH says that raw milk is really good for asthma. All these studies out of Europe. Oh, they were not happy with that. They called that commercial speech because I was making a medical claim on our milk because it helped cure asthma, which it does. It does a fantastic job of asthma. But I couldn't make it because I had not spent $10 million in 10 years with the FDA to prove it to them, even though the studies coming out of Europe said that was true. I had to prove it to them as a drug. Anytime in America you make a claim on a food and it has a medical claim that's approved by the FDA, you just created a new drug. That's why you don't see medical claims on food in America, because literally they have to be patented to make the money back on all the money you invested. So we saw the same thing with Palm Wonderful, the Resniks, who have the wonderful pomegranate juice. When they made a claim that there was lots of these anti-cancer antioxidants found in pomegranate juice, which is true. It's fantastic antioxidant, anti-cancer factors found in pomegranate juice. They got hauled into court too and sued by the FDA for making medical claims. So the idea that food is medicine is something we say as the people in America. The government actually hates that food is medicine, because that steps on pharmaceutical and all the cures they have that are patented that they make money on. So there's a major war between food is medicine and drugs cure, between those two things. And I've been hauled into court a couple times on that, just using the science that the FDA had and say, look at this, guys. Makes your asthma get better.
What happened that time? I think maybe a year or two back, where they pulled all the raw milk in California.
We had a pathogen found in our milk.
Okay.
We had probably 10 people, maybe 15, were sickened by salmonella. We hated it. That was when we were sending our milk samples off farm to another lab, which took 3 to 4 days to get the data back. Now we have the data before it ever leaves the farm. We found the cow in 3 or 4 days. We actually found the cow by doing testing, and she was gone. So we got rid of the whole thing with 3 or 4 days. All the people that complained about getting sick from salmonella recovered without being treated within 3 or 4 days, had a bad case of diarrhea, which I'm very sad that they had that. We own it. It's our problem. But very few hospitalizations, like maybe 1 or 2 just overnight. And they healed up. They were fine. So that salmonella was the reason it triggered us to start doing on-farm PCR testing with a Thermo Fisher lab, on-farm with our own lab techs. And now we don't have that problem anymore because we can test before it leaves the farm, and then we know exactly what's going on. But yeah, the state shut us down. That was 2023. Mm-hmm. Now, 2024, that was a different story. That was bird flu.
Okay.
That was 5 weeks. Salmonella, we were only down for 4 or 5 days. But the bird flu is something very interesting. The FDA, to this day, does not have one person ever made sick by consumption of a food with bird flu in it. Because influenza, H5N1, bird flu, is not a foodborne disease. It is something that happens through the respiratory system. You have to inhale it to get sick. And people are not sensitive to H5N1 bird flu by inhalation or ingestion either way. They aren't. Unless you have a very high level of toxin because you manage birds directly, like a flock of chickens. Raw milk is not a contagion, which actually causes illness. But this was a platform to go after raw milk and hit us any way they could. We learned a lot about immunology. We learned a lot about viruses. This is the first time virus had ever been implicated in causing problems with milk, ever. In fact, if you think about COVID in 2020, what was the advice that the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, told moms that had COVID themselves, which is influenza, very similar to bird flu, by the way, very similar. They're both encapsulated viruses, which are influenza. What did they tell the moms if they're breastfeeding their baby, if they had COVID? Don't stop. Because the antibodies in the milk protected the baby from getting it. That's the mother-baby connection. That's mothers protect their young. That's how mammals work. The mother gets sick. She creates antibodies to give to the baby. The baby gets a little problem. The bacteria from the baby's mouth shares it up to the nipple into the mom, and the mom creates antibodies for the baby. The mom is an antibody factory for the baby. That's how Mother Nature works. And so the same thing happened with cows. Those that drink raw milk get antibodies from drinking that raw milk, from the mother's milk. They don't get the illness, the virus, they get the antibodies. And that's very, very interesting because that's how Mother Nature works. We know of 500 people or maybe more that drank raw milk from H5N1 positive bird flu cows down in New Mexico. I know because the farmer called me immediately. It was never found on the farm because he kept it quiet and he's selling that raw milk in stores. And it passed within 2 weeks because that's how long the cows actually incubated. It was done. And the cows have herd immunity and now they're immune and they go back to normal. They don't die. But the FDA refused to investigate that incident, even though I told them exactly what was going on down there. I said, this is a very good cohort, which is a number of people to investigate to see what's going on, a research project. Go down there and figure out. 6 months later, we got hit by bird flu because it traveled between herds. Now our herd is immune. It has antibodies to bird flu in the milk, which is a wonderful thing. Very low levels, but still it's there. But the FDA refused to do anything about it. The FDA did not involve themselves, but CDFA, California Department of Food and Agriculture, shut us down for about 5 weeks. From about November 1st to January 5th, we were shut down. And it was a very big hit on us. But we also learned a lot. And now we do some things to protect ourselves from that as well. But it wasn't pretty. It's really tough. All of our neighbors were selling that milk to be pasteurized because it's going to be pasteurized. It was okay, right? But yet nobody gets sick from raw milk with H5N1. And the FDA still to this day cannot find patient number one that's ever gotten sick from raw milk with H5N1 virus in it or antibodies. Nobody. And yet we were shut down for 5 weeks. We could not use one drop of our milk in any of our products, including cheese. So yeah, that was a tough one. But you know what? Pioneers don't get help. We got help by our customers. They came back in droves January 7th and bought our product and continue to buy our product like you can't believe.
Is it only with dairy that you should consume it raw, or is it with meat as well, or other products?
That's up to you.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Well, do you eat raw meat or meat?
I love ceviche. I'm a ceviche guy. I love ceviche. That's fish.
Uh-huh.
I'm not so much into tartar and beef. I know that people are, and that's fine. There's all kinds of sushi you can eat, beef and fish raw. Nothing wrong with it. Cooking has its own ability to break things down, but you also lose some things as well. So it's up to you and your flavor, what you want to do. I know a lot of people that eat raw juices, a lot of raw juices, smoothies with vegetables, lettuce, cucumbers, carrots, bananas, eggs, all that kind of stuff. With that, you're going to have a biodiversity of bacteria, and that's a good thing. And it's very, very good for the diversity in your gut because you're ingesting it. And some of those bacteria actually survive through the stomach acid. And interesting to note that a major carrier of bacteria through the stomach into the lower gut is milk. Because as soon as the milk hits your stomach, the pH of the stomach at 1 to 2 pH is very acidic, immediately makes a cheese curd. The cheese curd clumps the milk up into a bundle, which protects the bacteria in it to go to the lower gut. So that's made by Mother Nature's design, is to allow that bacteria to get to the lower gut to become part of the microbiome. And that's why milk that's brought into the stomach, that's ingested, makes a cheese curd, which is like cheese. Goes from fluid to cheese right away in your stomach.
What would you tell those vegans that say, like, you're not a calf, you're taking the milk away from the calf, stuff like that?
What I tell vegans is this. The brain is made up of fat, mostly fat. Breast milk has raw fat in it. Breast milk comes from an animal, not a vegetable. There are parents in jail right now for denying their children raw fats or good fats in their diets because it caused brain damage in their children when they were infants. Happened down in Florida. You can look it up yourself. Breast milk is an animal food. That's the standard by which food is measured, especially in infants that are developing. If you look at the history of man, we've been eating fish, chicken, pork, beef forever. Deer, you name it, we've been eating it. Also raw milk. So you go back to the foundations and you use some history, And you realize that you're only vegan when you were starving because you couldn't hunt very well or your fishing failed. And you were vegan for a very short term period of time because you needed to have the energy density that came from fat. So I'm not against eating vegetables at all. I think it's wonderful, good source of fiber, all kinds of wonderful things you find in vegetables and in fruits. We're omnivores, not just carnivore, but we can actually eat other things as well and digest them as well. So I'm a big balanced plate kind of guy. Raw milk is part of it. Beef, chicken, milk, cheese, vegetables, fruit, everything. Whole food. Eat it as a whole food, less processed or unprocessed. And fermented if you can get it. Fermented, the kimchi, pickles, sauerkraut, fantastic.
So during this many years of selling your product, there's been an unbelievable number of people with great results, great kids, great immune systems.
I got stories upon stories upon stories. My hat over there says Farmers Over Pharmacies.
Mm-hmm.
I had a website called Farmers Over Pharmacies for about 5 years until it was shut down by the FDA. Because I would go interview our customers and say, tell me your story. I would not suggest anything about what they did or what the story was. I said, tell me your story. And they would talk about Crohn's disease. They would talk about asthma, immune compromised, frequent colds, flu. They would talk about all these things that are associated with the immune system, chronic disease and inflammation. And they would tell a story in about 3 or 4 minutes to say, and I recovered from it using raw milk, raw milk kefir, a whole food diet, bone broths, olive oil, avocados, all these wonderful foods. I recovered my gut. The inflammation went away, and I didn't have to have that surgery to have my intestines removed and poop in a plastic bag. That kind of story I was telling at our Farmers Over Pharmacies website. It got shut down. The FDA closed it. Because I was converting and making the idea that food is medicine. That something other than a pharmaceutical drug could heal or cure you. Now, I'm not against using a pharmaceutical drug acutely up front to maybe take some pain away or help acutely, but it doesn't resolve the long-term problem. Food does. The environment in the gut, if it's whole food nutrition, that's where the microbiome thrives. That's where inflammation drops. That's where you get better, right? So they didn't like that at all. And again, a violation of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, where any claim on a food which is to heal or cure, you're in violation of the law. So yeah, we got some real issues with our FDA that likes to have drugs the only cure and no food doesn't matter.
How much raw milk do you suggest?
It's not a drug. Eat as much as you want. I know people that drink a half gallon a day, and I know a person that drinks 2 or 3 cups a week. You know, it's up to you. Maybe you're going on vacation, you can't drink any for a couple weeks because you can't get any. It's not a drug. It's a choice you make for your gut. And it's very, very satiating because it has the fats. It makes you feel fuller quicker. It's a great weight loss drug, by the way. It's a weight loss food. It's better than Ozempic, that's for damn sure. But what you do is you basically do exercise, get out sunshine, well hydrated, plenty of exercise, drink raw milk. People lose a lot of weight that way. But you're not starving your body from anything you need. So we don't give a daily recommendation on how much raw milk people should drink or eat. We just know that it should be in your diet. And if it's not in your diet, that's your choice. We're not forcing anybody to do anything. It's a free country. You do what you want. But those choices, remember that 80% of your immune system is your gut microbiome. And remember that raw milk is the first food of life. It has incredible bioactives in it that recover a starving microbiome in the gut to make it work better. And so if you think about that intelligently, it's like, I want to include that food in my life along with sauerkraut and good meat and bone broth and all the things that I should be getting into my gut, which my gut thrives on. The bacteria need to eat. If you have a biodiversity of bacteria in your gut and you starve them, your microbiome really suffers. You need to seed in the good bacteria and then feed them if you want to have a thriving microbiome and have a strong immune system. Seed it in, feed it in, and then feed it out. And whole food is what you use to feed. If you use highly processed foods that have preservatives in them, highly processed foods don't have any bacteria. They're dead, long shelf life foods. And the loss of bacteria and the fact that preservatives are used to extend shelf life and kill bacteria. Now you just did a double whammy. You're not seeding anything in, and what you are sending in there kills bacteria. Now you have a real problem with the fact that your gut's going to be inflamed.
I think that's really powerful message, especially for moms.
Yep.
And I think you were saying earlier that moms can make a difference through the dollar
voting.
Because-
They're the ones that generally, dads are doing it more. God bless dads too. But they're the ones pushing the grocery cart, making a choice what they're going to put in their family tonight or today. And they can make a very big choice by just dollar voting, saying, I'm not going to do this and I'm going to do this. That directs the market in a way that's very, very, very powerful. It really is. You can produce all the raw milk in the world you want, but if nobody buys it, not doing nothing. It's got to get to the gut. So that's a purchase process, and that's a choice that people make to do that. And those that make that choice thrive. They thrive, even though it's not cheap. Interesting point about cost of milk. In 1969, I was 8 years old. I'm 64 now. The Ford truck cost about $3,500, $3,800 for a Ford truck. The dairymen were getting about 50 to 60 cents a gallon for their milk on the farm. Okay, so $3,700 truck, the farmer was getting 60 cents a gallon on the farm. Today, that Ford truck costs you $75,000, and the milk, the farmer's getting about $1.20 a gallon. The math is all wrong. That's for the conventional milk being sold for pasteurization. I'm getting something that's roughly a value of a Ford truck at about $35,000. So actually, I'm not as expensive as that truck would be if I got full value for that truck. We're delivering that milk to the store at $13 a gallon to the store, and then the store marks it up to $17 to $19. On the farm, we sell it for $12. So the farm direct pricing is really something we encourage people to do. If you can go to the farm or go to one of our hub stores, get the milk price cheaper, you can buy a lot more for cheaper. But the whole point I'm saying to say this is America has a lot of very cheap food. And you're robbing two people, yourself and the farmer. Because that cheap food is highly processed, a lot of sugar in it. It's going to cause all kinds of yeast overgrowth. That's not good for the gut microbiome. So you're cheating yourself, and the actual real cost of that food is in the pharmaceuticals you take later to fix the problems. And the farmer, he's getting so few pennies on the dollar that he can't even survive. The people that are doing okay are the stores and the distributors, not the farmers and not the consumers. So we're trying to change that paradigm by having farmers thrive and consumers thrive at the same time. But it does take a little bit of a shift in the priorities that you have for your food. Maybe you're going to eat one less Starbucks coffee this week, to make up the difference. But the difference is felt in longevity. And at 64 years old, I want to live to be 100. I really do. But I exercise every day. I take my shirt off and run a couple miles out in the runway. I eat whole food diet as much as I can all the time. And I feel great. I feel really good. But I tell you what, if you cheat yourself early in life, you pay for it later in life. It really is about exercise, sunshine, hydration, good foods, love in your life. Those kinds of things you'll prosper for a long time and have optimal long life. If you cheat yourself by not exercising, by not getting some sunshine, by eating a bunch of trashy food and garbage and cheap food, you're cheating yourself and your life in terms of longevity.
Man, it's a lot of information.
Whole lot of, huh?
Yeah.
Whole lot of.
Wow.
You grew up in Austria.
Yeah. I was always, I never could wrap my head around why Americans are so lactose intolerant. Because I grew up my whole life drinking milk, eating cheese, butter on everything, and then there's this, I remember thinking, I was born 92 and butter was on everything. And then there was this movement that like fat is bad for you. It came. And then the whole non-fat products, low-calorie products, processed food. And then now I feel though there's a huge wave
There is.
against it.
There is. There's a big swing, and I give some credit to Bobby Kennedy.
Yeah.
And the MAHA movement. Not MAHA, MAGA, MAHA, Make America Healthy. There's a bunch of really upset moms that are wanting to have more whole food nutrition for their children. They're hitting a major roadblock of the industry that is persistent, regardless of whether you have Trump or you have Biden or you had Obama. The industry goes through all those administrations. So it's not so much the administration, is the persistence of the way capitalism works. We've been producing raw milk now for 26 years, and we've been through all kinds of presidents. The same policies persisted through every one of them, including the current president. But I think that what's happening right now is there is a awareness happening that whole food nutrition is very important. Now, they didn't put raw milk on the food pyramid, but they put whole milk on the food pyramid. What's interesting about that is when they talk about the food pyramids, they talk about eating unprocessed foods. Look at the examples on the food pyramid. Well, if you put whole milk and unprocessed together, you get raw milk. So we're just 1 degree away from saying raw milk should be on the food pyramid. It's being verbally spoken of by saying unprocessed, but then you've got whole milk sitting on the food pyramid. So we're closer, a little better, but we're not there yet. Change happens incrementally, if at all, and it's resisted tremendously by those that lose money during that process. And the processors will lose more and more money over time, and change is painful. Change is really painful. The only person that likes change is a baby with a wet diaper. That's the only person. Everybody else doesn't like it.
Do you see more people buying raw farm milk?
Yes, we're growing a lot. We had all-time high record sales in January on our whole milk. And we do a trend analysis over many, many years. And COVID was a huge spike for us. People wanted raw milk because they wanted the immune system support for raw milk. And then we've been growing every year since then. But just recently, in the last 2 to 3 months, we've had another spike as well. We've got 105 employees, 28 trucks, 2 dairies, 65,000 gallons of milk a week going into our creamery to make these products. And we're continuing to grow. But we don't want is to grow in a way that is not honest to our roots. So we have to grow sustainably and keep the same kind of conditions toward our cows, pastures, all the things we do, not just become some industrial knockoff, right? You gotta be honest and true to your origins, and that's what we've done a really good job of.
How many states allow raw milk?
About 12. Let me see if I can memorize what they are. Here they are: Maine, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, I believe it's North Carolina, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Washington State, Idaho, Utah. That's 10. Those are the places you can buy on a store if you want to. Utah's changing the laws right now. The farmer has to own the store, but you can still, there's a bunch of farm stores that are owned by stores. And the balance on that, it's a cow share. Like in Illinois, you cannot buy except on the farm, and they don't allow you to advertise. Wisconsin, you can't buy milk except incidentally, which is actually, in my opinion, really, really dangerous. Because what you're doing is saying, if you want raw milk, go to your local dairy with a cup and get it. What you're doing is buying milk that's intended to be pasteurized, that's going to have pathogens because the farmer didn't worry about the health of the cow or the cleanliness of the milk. You're just buying off the bulk tank that normally gets shipped off to the pasteurizer. That's where you start seeing illnesses. I just spent 4 days up there doing politics with Chaz Self, Grassway Organic Dairy up there in their state legislature, working on the politics of change to say, listen, we agree the raw milk can be very dangerous if produced for pasteurization. We don't worry about manure. We're not talking about the kind of milk. You have consensus. We agree over there. We're talking about raw milk from a single operation that does a really good job of keeping clean water, good pastures, all the stuff you want to do for the cows and testing. That's a whole different food. And we explained that to them. I said, Wisconsin's a dairy state. You're losing 10% of your dairies every year because of these low milk prices. Shouldn't you level up here and become class act, world-class raw milk like California and other places? And their point was, yes, we should, because the people there are entitled to do it, and they should be able to set their own prices on the farm and sell the milk. So there's progress being made, but every time you hold a hearing, big ag interests, the big dairy processors come in and say, no way, no way, no way, no raw milk in our state. And they just are extremely jealous and suppress that process. What you do is you bring in 500 moms and say, sorry, I can't drink your milk. I need to drink raw milk because pasteurization causes allergies and all these kinds of problems. And you just have to make space for raw milk this high standard. You bring the moms in and they testify. And then the processors can't condemn the moms. They're sacred. They're the dollar voters. You start to pick a fight with a mom, you lose every day. So we bring the moms in, we bring the science in, we bring the producers that do a good job with the right standards, and you start winning.
Yeah, I think there's just too many sick children. I mean, they're sicker than ever. From allergies to asthma, chronic disease.
Guess how many kids die every day from asthma in America?
No idea.
13. Every day. Every day, 13 kids die. And that's considered okay. That's just the way it is. I say that's not okay. And we know that raw milk makes asthma much, much better. So.
And you also know that pasteurization
can trigger it.
Can be harmful.
Absolutely. And the fact that these children that have asthma would never drink a pasteurized dairy product because it's so allergenic and it actually causes mucus production. It causes congestion and inflammation and the allergic response where their bronchioles and their lungs tighten up and they can't breathe.
So all the bad crap from dairy comes from pasteurization.
Yes. Well, that's part of it. It's a big, big part of it. But it has to do with, and this is a boring word, standards you're using to produce. What are the conditions you have your cows in? What do you feed your cows? How do you milk your cows? Do you clean the udders off? Are they dry? Do you know what your cows are doing? Are they healthy or not?
So the pasteurization cheats that.
Yes.
Because you can have way lower quality of milk and still sell it.
Exactly. It allows you to have poor conditions, unhealthy cows, or a combination of unhealthy cows and healthy cows, together. And then if you don't have unhealthy cows, fine, your neighbors probably don't. So it's all combined together. It excuses filth. So there's a problem with the structure and the standards we're talking about here. If an individual farmer gets trained, they invest in healthy cows and feed, they understand how to clean the udder off so there's no manure there, and they know how to test the cow. They know how to maintain their equipment so the equipment actually is functioning properly. They know how to clean their equipment so they don't have biofilms, which can harbor pathogenic bacteria, layers of fat and crap inside of the milk lines because it's unclean, which is okay in pasteurized, but not okay with raw. You want a clean milk line. How quickly do you chill the milk down to below 40 degrees? All those things are different set of standards. And you would do those standards for human consumption, raw milk, not for pasteurization. So it's all about standards. It's all about standards, training and testing, those things. And that takes a deliberate, intentional decision by the farmer to match up with consumers and feed them that kind of product.
Tell me one more time the process your milk goes through.
Clean conditions where the cows are. Sunshine, pastures, clean water. A ration that the cows eat, the diet that they eat, is very, very supportive of their immune system. So they're healthy and have enough energy to produce 6 gallons a day, really healthy. The way that the udders are cleaned inside the milk barn, where they're washed off completely, dried off with a clean towel. They test the milk right there to make sure everything's okay right there. Then they pre-dip and they post-dip with iodine that they wipe off to make sure that the teats are sanitary. Then they put the machines on. And the machines are well maintained so that the rubber hoses and things on are not cracked and have a problem where pathogens and biofilms can reside and cause problems. So very clean, well-maintained machines that then the stainless steel takes the milk into a chiller where within 2 minutes at Raw Farm, our milk is 36 to 37 degrees. Goes from 99 degrees at the cow to 36 degrees in about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. That stops all bacteria growth. It doesn't kill anything. It just stops the bacteria growth because that's what's going to shorten shelf life and cause flavors to change so that you have very low bacteria counts, still very diverse bacteria from inside the teat canal and the udder. And then we test the milk in our own pathogen lab on farm, and that data comes back in about 20 hours. We then have a batch that is coded as a batch. That milk that we have is a batch. It's taken with our truck to our creamery, which is about 15 miles away. And in Fowler, it's made into bottled milk, butter, cream, cheese, all of our products. And we know it's pathogen-free because we've tested it. And we also test the end product as well to make sure. So lots of testing, but different kinds of conditions, different kinds of preparation for the udder, different kind of health in the cows. It's a different kind of set of standards. And that's legal in California. Standards are described pretty well in the state of California code, but we go beyond that because we believe that the standards should be even tighter. But in California, raw milk is 100% legal. It's just hard to do.
So the standards need to change.
Yes, standards need to change. And what I was hoping to do, and I was asked by Bobby to be an advisor to the FDA. That happened last 2 summers ago. It was actually 2024. Nicole Shanahan, who was his vice presidential running candidate, came to the farm and interviewed me for a few hours. She asked me if I would be an advisor to the FDA to help them develop these standards. And I said, absolutely, I would. Unfortunately, it never came to pass. They never called me later to actually follow up. I got one text from Bobby Kennedy in March saying, when McAfee is confirmed, we'll have you back to talk about raw milk. They never called me back. Even though I was vetted, I was part of the thing to go do that. Now I would be kind of reluctant to be involved because of the three-ring circus going on with Greenland and what's going on with the whole issue with tariff and what's going on with ICE, which I absolutely am repulsed by what's going on with ICE. So I would be very much wanting to participate, to be practical and assist to create good standards with the FDA, but I would do it from an arm's length because when Trump's gone in a year or two, I'm going to be here for a long time. And I want to be serving humanity, not one particular group of people right now.
And would you want to sell in every state?
I'm not going to produce raw milk for every citizen in America. That's not my goal.
Okay.
I don't have an Elon Musk billionaire kind of complex. I'm fine where I'm at. We may go into a couple other states and do it as well. But here's the thing. You can change the federal law by getting guidance. That's not a regulation. That's saying, if you're going to do raw milk, use these standards. It's a guidance. You don't regulate it, but you say, this is what we suggest. And that will get this 50 states all thinking along the same lines because they all look to the FDA for guidance, right? Well, the problem is then the states have to accept that. They have to do something about it at the state level. So there'll be a big lag behind creating guidance at the FDA level that says, states, this is what we'd like for you to do for raw milk for human consumption, and the states actually doing it. So the states would actually have to change their law state by state. But it'd be much easier if the FDA came out and said, here are the high standards we would recommend you use for raw milk for human consumption. And then the states could say, okay, at least we have consensus at the FDA, and then they could follow if they wanted. And you'd have much more rapid change. Right now, it's a people movement where moms are upset because they have to go find raw milk at midnight, moonshine, run, it's just kind of crazy where you have to go get milk. The moms will go and testify at the state legislature saying, we want high standards, we want trained farmers we can trust to get things going. It would be faster if the FDA would be on our side saying, they'd show up at the hearing saying, we agree, these kind of standards would be low risk. They don't show up at the hearings. They show up, they send a veterinarian to the hearing saying, raw milk will kill you. Horrible. Look at all these pathogenic bacteria in raw milk. Their raw milk, the kind of raw milk that goes out to be pasteurized, can be lethal. It really can be because of the way it's produced. And what we're saying is, we agree with the FDA on that. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about raw milk for human consumption standards, different set of policies and procedures. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to meet because what it does is it does two things. It's highly embarrassing, the fact that they're excusing filth. And they don't want to talk about what's in the milk that's just dead. Makes it so allergenic. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the difficulty in digestion. They don't want to talk about all that stuff, the flavor. They want to say that this is the whole entire belief pattern is absolutely the way to go, and there's no arguing against it. They're so inflexible that they won't even consider HPP, which is high pressure pascalization, which is something done in New Zealand and Australia in lieu of pasteurization. Instead of high temperature, they use high pressure. It saves about 60 to 70% of these bioactives we're talking about because the heat's not involved. Like cold pressing. They won't even talk about that. It's a very effective type of pasteurization. They won't talk about it. They won't talk about UV. My good friend Bob in Fresno, he's pulled his hair out. 8 years and $5-6 million of investment to get UV approved for raw milk for UV. It's no longer raw milk afterwards, but it saves a lot of these bioactives that are so important in milk. It protects a lot of them, 60 or 70%, maybe even 80% of these bioactives are not killed off by UV radiation, which is sunlight, versus heat. They won't even accept that. So they're stuck in their ways based on one way to go. It's heat, that's it. Heat. Kill it by heat. Cook it, which makes it very allergenic.
Yeah, I think people have heard about the benefits, but I don't think they are aware of what pasteurization means. I think that's also new information for me. Like I knew it's not the best, but I had no idea about like the that it comes with really a bad environment for the cow, that it comes with heating it to the absolute max multiple times and infusing it with synthetic vitamins. I mean, most people don't. I have never heard of that, which is really great information.
It's the untold story of commercialized milk in
Yeah.
America. And it's one of those things that it's deeply entrenched in the processors. There's billions of dollars invested in all the equipment to do that process, and nobody wants to change equipment. Nobody wants to change standards because it's going to cost more money. The farmer starts getting paid. Whoever came up with that idea? Paying a farmer? No, hell with that. Pay the processor. Farmers are just slaves. There's an old saying, it's always cheaper if you steal it, right? Well, that's exactly what's going on with pasteurized milk right now, is they're stealing milk from farmers that are getting less than the cost of production to go off to be processed. And when the farmer, it's one of the highest suicide rates right now in America is the dairy farmer. Because in the past, they used to get higher milk price for their milk. Now they're getting super low milk price and they can't make their payments to the bank or whatever. And they'll be the dairy generation that loses the farm. And they may have a life insurance policy and they'll give that to the family when they shoot themselves. It's really, really tragic. But, when a farmer commits suicide, it's not in the news. It's not related to or linked to milk prices because they're just a farmer that committed suicide. Who are they? They're not a brand. They were just a supplier into the system, and they're just a story that's not told that's out there that happened tragically. Pretty sad.
Can you give raw milk to a newborn?
We know people that have, and they've had no problem with it at all. It's not recommended by the medical authority people. They say no. Generally, they say no pasteurized milk until a year of age because you have to develop the digestive tract before they can actually take pasteurized milk. Raw milk is different because it breaks down and digests itself. So I have no problem at all with babies taking raw milk if mom can't breastfeed. That they could drink raw milk. And we know Dr. Jordan Rubin, who wrote The Maker's Diet, he had twins that he had, and both of them from newborn, both drank raw milk from our dairy and thrived. So it's a mom and dad call, but I know that the similarities are so close to breast milk that they can do quite well. Breastfeeding is by far the best thing to do, for sure, because mom's specialized antibodies and things that mom gives to baby is going to be specialized where you're not going to get that from raw cow's milk. But you'll get the digestibility, you get the fats, you get the other things that are there, much similar to mom's breast milk.
And formula is just so horrific. I mean, of course, if you can breastfeed it. But
yes.
if you cannot breastfeed or you don't want to breastfeed,
then it would be raw milk.
Yeah.
It'd be raw milk. Interesting formula based on skim milk. Formula makers don't have a full fat milk. It's all skim milk.
And seed oils,
skim milk, maltodextrin, all kinds of crap, emulsifiers that destroy the gut. I mean, it's just a toxic. It's horrible. It's really bad. Mother's breast milk's by far the best. If she can't, and she wants to, but can't make it up. My daughter Kaylee, when she was breastfeeding our youngest grandson Justin, many years ago, so 11 years ago, she was going back to work and having some stress and this and that, and she decided, you know what? I need to increase my milk production because I want to pump and I want to get this milk for my baby. She started drinking more raw milk herself, and her milk production went through the roof within 24 hours. So raw milk in, raw milk out for moms makes a huge difference. So we've seen that. She had all of her girlfriends that were pregnant at the time doing the same thing, and their milk production went up like 50, 75%. Went way up. Engorgement. So there's factors found in raw milk which actually helps mom produce raw milk for the babies.
What about the sugar in milk? I feel like it's really different than like white sugar or any other kind of sugar.
One of the subject matters that was discussed at the last IMGC, International Milk Genomics Consortium Conference in Aarhus, Denmark in September of this last year, which I attended, was that milk is a very low glycemic index food. The fat, the proteins, the sugar all balance it, and raw milk is very, very stable on the glycemic end. It does not cause a sugar spike. That's why it's so recommended for rehydration after workouts. because it doesn't cause a sugar spike, and the sugar actually is a longer curve for digestion, and it actually does very, very well. It makes you feel full earlier, great hydration, and it doesn't have a high glycemic index in terms of sugar.
And also, I think the protein is casein.
Casein, yeah.
Casein protein that is also slower
Yes,
on the release.
yes. Casein protein digests slowly in the gut. It's one of the key proteins found in raw milk. In raw milk, the casein protein is actually associated with peptidases, peptides that are functional. So that protein is a functional protein, not just a dead piece of cheese. So it's a bioactive, interactive food that's bioavailable as well as filled with bioactives we're talking about. If you were to go to chat, say, list me all the bioactives found in raw cow's milk that are heat sensitive, you can list like 40 of them. There'd be alkaline phosphatase, which is very anti-inflammatory. You get lactoferrin, you got raw whey proteins, lactoalbumin, all these kinds of things, all huge, and there's many more that wouldn't be listed. Those are the things you're losing in pasteurization that you're gaining in raw, which are phenomenal in terms of building blocks of life, proteins, sugars, fats, minerals, all those things are there in bioavailable form.
So it's an absolute superfood.
It is a superfood. As designed by nature in a million years of evolution. Unique to food is breast milk and raw milk. No other food has that unique blueprint. That's the first food of life. No other food. It's it. First and only.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was awesome.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah.
Appreciate the time educating. We don't sell raw milk. We teach it. Why would anybody want to buy any milk if it had a history of 1880s killing people? Well, you have to understand why it happened and how it happened. And if you can educate about breast milk, which is the bridge of peace, by the way, between everybody, because nobody disagrees with breastfeeding. Everybody agrees that's great stuff. If we can have consensus there, then we can talk about raw milk from cows using high standards and trained farmers and testing. So thank you, Jacob. Great to be on the Candy Kin show. Good job.
Thank you. All right.